Over the past few years, Amouage has become my favorite fragrance house by far. I've sampled, decanted, bought, sold, and worn my way through an absurd amount of their catalog, and at this point, I've tried nearly every Amouage that I could get my hands on. Today, I'm going to be rating every single Amouage fragrance that I've personally smelled. And just a quick disclaimer before we start, these scores are completely subjective. A fragrance getting a lower score does not mean that it's bad, although I'll tell you right now, every single one of these perfumes will get an extremely high score. But this really is based on my personal taste, how much I enjoy wearing it, how interesting I find it, and how likely I am to reach for it. With that out of the way, let's get started. Starting off with Honor 43, which is technically in the women's line, although every Amouage perfume is unisex, I'm giving this a 9.8 out of 10. Honor 43 was one of the biggest surprises in the entire Amouage lineup for me. On paper, it does not sound like something I'd obsess over, but every time I wear it, I'm reminded of how ridiculously good it is. Honor 43 is a creamy white floral forward tuberose perfume. The apopanax and other resins in the dry down gives Honor 43 a velvety and resinous vanilla texture. Honor 43 is very feminine leaning, but I would wear it any day of the week. Next up is Epic 56, which is also technically from the women's line, and I'm going to give this a 9.9 out of 10. This perfume is just absurd. Every time I wear it, I feel like I'm wearing something that was made with absolutely no budget in mind. Quality on this thing is ridiculous. It's dark, rich, smoky, and spicy, yet somehow still incredibly smooth at the same time. What I love most about Epic 56 is that it feels huge without ever feeling messy. There are so many things going on, but it never loses its composure. The only issue with Epic 56 is that it can come off very pickly in the air. I personally do not mind the pickly smell, but the average person would not enjoy that. Anyways, Epic 56 is getting a 9.9 out of 10. Love Hibiscus is next, and this is also from the women's collection and one of the newest additions from the brand. Love Hibiscus is one of my favorite gourmands of all time because it doesn't fall into the trap of just being sweet for the sake of being sweet. It has this beautiful, fruity, almost jammy hibiscus note that reminds me of marmalade, but there's also a tartness running through it that keeps everything in check. People don't seem to talk about this, but there's a huge dose of orris butter, which is chalky and almost bitter. That sounds a little bit weird on paper, but it keeps everything from being too sweet. A lot of people are not fans of this perfume because it's not nearly as artistic or creative as some of the other offerings from the brand, but every time I wear this, I'm reminded of how well composed it is, and therefore I'm giving it a 9.9 out of 10. Now let's talk about Reflection Man, which is probably the classiest fragrance that Amouage makes. It's incredibly smooth, easy to wear, and has a slight green quality that keeps it feeling fresh. However, there's one quality that's really holding this back from being a great perfume to me, and that quality is its artisticness. Compared to the rest of the house, Reflection Man is very boring and basic. That's not a bad thing necessarily, but when I go to Amouage, I'm going for the artistic, the unique, and the very unconventional perfumes. For this reason, I'm going to give Reflection Man a 9.1 out of 10. Next up is Wood Symphony, or Opus 5, and I'm going to give this a 9.2 out of 10. This is actually the only Amouage that I've ever sold, and honestly, I kind of regret it, but I don't at the same time. The contrast between the elements here is very interesting. The opening is dry and dominated by the buttery orris that I was talking about in Love Hibiscus, but there's also a lightly feminine jasmine and rose, and then under all of that, an animalic oud and civet, but somehow it's really restrained and really light. This is another pretty tame one, and I'll definitely get it back in the future if it comes up for a good price, but as of right now, I think a 9.2 out of 10 is the perfect score for this. Next up is Guidance, which is one of the most beautiful perfumes that Amouage has ever made, but wow, is it feminine. I don't really think perfume has a gender, but this is definitely one of the most feminine smelling perfumes that I've ever smelled. Guidance is sweet, floral, incredibly high-pitched, and the performance is ridiculous. A couple of sprays is too much. It also has a very creamy quality, almost like sunscreen, which is a little bit odd to some people. I actually wore this to the gym a couple of weeks ago, and I was getting some very odd looks because I'm a 200-pound dude walking around the gym smelling like a pretty princess. But I honestly don't care in the slightest, and this is one that I will probably pick up a bottle of sometime in the future. Up next, we have our first discontinued perfume on the list, and this is Beloved Man, which I'm going to give a 9.7 out of 10. This perfume has always felt like Amouage's answer to the clean, classy white floral style, but with a much more Middle Eastern twist. This is kind of like Reflection Man's older and more sophisticated cousin. It's equally as clean and versatile, but much more resinous and unique. Don't get me wrong, I love Reflection Man, but out of these two, I would definitely pick Beloved Man, which is why I'm giving this a 9.7 out of 10. I don't have my sample, but next is Guidance 46, which is a 46% concentrate of the original Guidance. This definitely gets a 9.9 out of 10, and as much as I love the original Guidance, this is the version that completely won me over. The scent profile is the exact same, but it's smoother, it's rounder, and it's a little bit less sharp than the original, so this gets a 9.9 out of 10. Next up is Amouage's first perfume ever made, Goldman in 1983. Now I can't find my sample, but I'm going to give this a 9.8 out of 10. Honestly, gourmand smells ridiculous on paper, but incredibly elegant in the air. It's very civet dominant and almost smells like pea. It also has this very vintage white floral vibe, which gives a little bit of a bathroom or retirement home kind of vibe, but somehow instead of ruining the fragrance, it gives it all of its character. Beneath all of the animalic weirdness is this incredibly classy, well-composed fragrance that carries itself with an insane amount of confidence. However, this is one that you really need to test before buying because this is one of the most animalic and weird perfumes from the house of Amouage. Next up is Diamant, which I also can't find my sample of, and I'm giving this a 9.7 out of 10. To me, it smells like sweet molasses that's been slowly crusting along the inside of an old oak barrel with fresh peony flowers sitting inside. That's a super weird description and it's very specific, but that is exactly how I smell it every single time. It's sweet, but it's not gourmand, and it's floral, but it's not overly floral. It's very balanced and very underrated from the brand. The second discontinued perfume from the list is Amouage Ratings, which I'm going to give a 9.9 out of 10. The first thing that always stands out to me is the ash note. It's not smoky like incense, and it's not like burnt wood, but like actual ash. Then there's this strange animal quality that reminds me of walking through a petting zoo. On paper, that sounds awful, and in reality, I can't stop smelling it. Mithsman is infamous for being a pretty odd perfume, but you definitely need to check it out. I also can't find my sample of this, but I'm going to briefly talk about Reflection 45, which to me is just a better version of the original. I'm going to give this a 9.6 out of 10. It's like the original, but many more resins. It's a lot deeper, richer, and darker, and for that reason, it's a little bit of a better perfume. Next up is Dia 40, which gets a 9.8 out of 10, and this fragrance smells like a rich, snobby billionaire woman, but in the best possible way. It feels really expensive and polished and almost effortless, and the aldehydes are very prominent, which gives it a very classic old school sparkle. It might be a little bit too dated for the average person nowadays, but I think this thing is incredible and incredibly well done. This is also one of the more feminine leaning perfumes from the house, but I don't care and I would wear it any day. This is the last sample before we get into the bottles, and this is Purpose, which I'm giving a 9.9 out of 10. This will probably be my next full bottle purchase, and Purpose is one of the driest perfumes that I've ever smelled. It's spicy, peppery, savory, dark, and honestly feels a little bit medieval in a weird way. Purpose is exceptionally weird and unconventional, even coming from a weird house like Amouage. And the star of the show is that huge dose of Akigala wood from Canton Biche that is a very hated or loved note. But I love it, and I'm giving it a 9.9 out of 10. Next up is Interlude Black Iris, and I'm going to give this a 9.3 out of 10. This is a fantastic perfume and one of the easiest Amouages to appreciate. It's dark, smoky, smooth, and incredibly well blended, and the reason it isn't higher for me is that I keep picking up on this strange vegetal quality that reminds me of a snapped flower stem. This isn't enough to ruin the perfume, but it's something that I notice every time that I wear it. It's still an excellent perfume though, and one that I easily recommend. Next up is the original Interlude, and I'm giving this a 9.9 out of 10. This perfume is infamous for a reason. The oregano note is one of the most recognizable notes in all of perfumery, and somehow it worked perfectly. Of course, being from the Interlude line, this is smoky, resinous, dark, and incredibly bold, but there's also something really beautiful about it. Despite its reputation, I've always found it surprisingly wearable. Interlude is a true masterpiece, and one of the perfumes that put Amouage on the map. 9.9 out of 10. Next up is Royal Tobacco, and I'm giving this a strong 9.9 out of 10. This is actually my scent of the day today, and every time I wear it, I'm reminded of why I love it so much. This is pure art in a bottle. One of my favorite stories about this is that my girlfriend hated this so much when she smelled it on paper. Granted, that's not very weird. She hates almost every single Amouage perfume she smelled, but I wore this to her house a couple weeks ago and I didn't tell her what it was, and she could not stop talking about how good it smelled. That's Royal Tobacco in a nutshell. It's not love at first sniff to a lot of people, but when it comes together in the air, it's absolutely magical. 9.9 out of 10. Next up is Honor Man, which I'm going to give a 9.6 out of 10. Honor Man is one of the least talked about from the brand, and I think it's entirely underrated. To me, it smells like a black pepper shower gel with a huge dose of chewy elemi resin. It's fresh, spicy, and incredibly easy to wear, while still having enough character to keep things interesting. Honor Man definitely deserves a lot more attention than it gets. 9.6 out of 10. Next up is Search, which I'm giving a 9.6 out of 10, and this is probably the most aggressive citrus perfume that I've ever smelled. There's nothing fresh or easygoing about this. It's tart, bitter, sour, and smells like someone threw lemon peels into a fire. The citrus feels dark and angry instead of fresh and uplifting, which is something I thought I'd never say about a lemon perfume. Definitely not for everyone, but I love how different this is, so I'm giving it a 9.6 out of 10. Next up is Silver Oud, and I'm giving this a 9.7 out of 10. If you want to know what real Assam Indian oud smells like, this is one of the best places to start. This stuff is incredibly funky, like really funky. Animalic, smoky, leathery, and just a little bit dirty. Amouage did not try to tame the oud here. They basically put it on full display, and it's definitely not a beginner fragrance. If you're an oud lover, this is an absolute treat. 9.7 out of 10. Next up is my favorite perfume of all time, and this is Rose Incense. This gets a 10 out of 10, and the name tells you exactly what you're getting into. Rose and incense. But it's so much more than that. The rose is dark, rich, and very jammy, while the incense gives it this smoky, almost haunting quality. The backbone is inky and resinous, and everything in here feels natural, without anything sticking out too much or feeling too forced. For me, this is the best perfume in the entire world. Next up is Interlude 53, and this gets a 9.9 out of 10. It smells identical to the OG, but it's smoother, denser, and somehow feels even more luxurious. The smoke, resins, and the spices are all still there, but everything feels a little bit more put together. This is some incredibly potent juice and will last you days and days and days on clothes, and even more than a day on skin. Next up is Jubilation 40, and this is one of the most regal and royal smelling perfumes that I've ever smelled. To put it very simply, this is pine tar, oud, and blackberry jam done to absolute perfection. Jubilation 40 will last about 14 hours, but the projection is very moderate, which actually makes it pretty wearable. The oud in here is sweeter than it is funky, and it's not too dominant, so if you're scared of oud, don't be scared to sample Jubilation 40. Next up is Enclave, which I'm going to give a 9.5 out of 10, and this one took a little while to grow on me. The contrast between the cold mint and the warm ambery base is what makes it so interesting. It gives the same sensation as standing outside on a freezing night and holding a hot drink. This is somehow one of the more mass appealing and unique Amouages at the same time. The only reason I'm not giving this a higher rating is because the amber in this is a tiny bit synthetic, which I don't get with any other Amouage perfume. The next perfume is another Rose and Incense from Amouage, but this is nothing like Rose Incense. This is Lyric Man, and I'm giving this a 9.9 out of 10. There's nothing jammy, sugary, or overly romantic about this, but it's an incredible musky rose. It's clean, it's smooth, it's elegant, and somehow manages to smell both classic and modern at the same time, and for this reason, Lyric Man gets a strong 9.9 out of 10. Next up is my first vintage bottle, and it's from 2016, and this is also a tester. This is Epic Man, and it's getting a 9.9 out of 10. There's incense, spices, woods, and an endless desert landscape when I think about Epic Man. It's very dark and dry and packed with character, but I love how natural everything smells. It's not synthetic in the slightest, and it just unfolds slowly and keeps getting better. Epic Man is extremely atmospheric and amazing, so I'm giving it a 9.9 out of 10. Next up is Boundless, and I'm going to give this a 9.8 out of 10. This is one of the most comforting perfumes from the Amouage lineup. It's warm, spicy, resinous, and it has this almost glowing quality to it. It's not the weirdest or most artistic Amouage, but it's one of the easiest for me to reach for. It's very spicy, warm, and vanillic, and they absolutely nail this one. 9.8 out of 10. Next up is my number 2 perfume of all time, and probably the weirdest perfume that I've ever smelled. This is Reckless Leather, and I'm giving this a 9.9 out of 10. This perfume is weird as hell. Honestly, every time I wear it, I'm reminded that Amouage will just release whatever they want and somehow will make it work. This smells like a brewing stew, it smells like an Indian kitchen, it smells very spicy, it smells like cumin, lots of pepper, and a rugged leather, and this thing is gorgeous. Next up is Overture Man, which gets a 9.9 out of 10, and I don't even know how to describe this stuff without sounding dramatic. Whenever I have this on, I sit there smelling my wrist like an idiot. It's so dark, rich, boozy, and has so much going on, but it all works incredibly well. This is one of those perfumes that reminds me of why I got into niche perfumery in the first place. It's bold, it's weird, it's memorable, and it's completely addictive, and therefore I'm giving this a 9.9 out of 10. But this is very animalic and has a slightly sweaty cumin note that you have to be aware of. You're probably sick of this number, but next up is King Blue, which is also getting a 9.9 out of 10. This is an insanely confusing perfume. Up close, I get wet rags and this super fecal oud Assam that honestly shouldn't work. But then somehow in the air, it starts smelling like blueberry pie, and it's sweet and very addictive. This is so interesting because up close, it's perfect for niche lovers who are into the more unique things, but in the air, it's actually really wearable and mass appealing. King Blue is expensive, but worth every penny in my opinion. Now we have Imitation Man, which is another discontinued perfume. This gets a 9.8 out of 10, and this smells like pears smothered in brown sugar sitting on a vinyl record cover. That's a little bit of a weird description, but I actually think it's pretty accurate. It's sweet, fruity, slightly waxy, and has this synthetic vinyl-like quality that makes it very interesting. Next up is Meander, which gets a 9.9 out of 10. This is one of the most calming perfumes that I've ever smelled. It's soft, airy, and really earthy, but what really stands out is this carrot seed and iris combination. It gives the perfume a misty and damp feel that's very hard to describe, but it's extremely addictive. Last but definitely not least, we have Journeyman, and I'm going to give this a 9.7 out of 10. This one is just pure fun. It's loaded with pepper and spices and has this almost fizzy quality that keeps pulling me back in every single time. It's not my favorite Amouage, but it's really easy to enjoy and a really well done spicy perfume. So I'm giving this a 9.7 out of 10. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching and comment what your favorite Amouage perfume is.